So there's really only one honest position to take from the standpoint of the Tara Reade situation and Democrats. There's only one. Most people haven't found it yet. You've had many people to attack Tara Reade, smear Tara Reade, to dox Tara Reade, to say that they don't necessarily believe her, make an argument that she's a Bernie voter, and that as a Bernie voter, she was put there like a bomb in order to hurt Joe Biden. You've had people on New York Times talking about the Me Too trap, that basically any claim can hurt a candidate now because you always believe women. Now, this was a dramatically different conversation back during the Kavanaugh hearing. Dramatically different. I was there. I was around. I believed for it, and not just believed for it. My thought was, it's very possible that it happened. I don't know as a flat fact, and so I don't necessarily condemn Kavanaugh. By the same token, I do give her the benefit of the doubt because it's difficult to come forward like that, and she seems credible to me. By the same token, I also believe Tara Reade because she also seems credible to me, not to mention she has more cooperating evidence than Ford. Now, there are a lot of Democrats out there that are now stuck in this weird contradiction where it's, I was really against Kavanaugh, but now I need a reason to justify my belief in Joe Biden. So Joe Biden had Abrams, he was putting out notes. Abrams goes out and said the New York Times has cleared Joe Biden. The New York Times comes back and says Joe Biden needs to be investigated, and we never cleared Joe Biden of anything. Now, when calling for that particular investigation, people responded to the New York Times in all sorts of ways, but some of them were basically, look, I don't want an investigation because I don't necessarily want to know if it's true or not, because that will hurt my candidate. You had other candidates people who say, hey, you need to look at Donald Trump more, and other people who were honest and just said, yeah, he needs to be investigated. If we're going to be honest, if we're going to be a party of integrity, if we're the good guys, we're the people who are supporting Me Too, then fair enough. Yes, let's have that investigation. Most, many, not so much. One woman on the pages of the New York Times in an op-ed hit the right answer. As morbid and as grim as the answer that she has decided upon, utilitarianism, she put a spin on it. But her answer is basically, Tara Reade, I believe you. I believe what you're saying. I'm a feminist. I believe in the Me Too movement. I believe and accept the gains of that movement. However, I am still voting for Joe Biden because in all things being equal, the process of less harm necessitates me to vote for one Joe Biden. Now, she coats this in all sorts of fancy words and all sorts of fancy philosophy talk, utilitarianism, how do we make less harm, the Spock logic of things. But I think she misses something. I think they misses something rather profound. And oftentimes when people have this argument about blue no matter who and Biden is clearly the better choice, it was basically the same arguments going back to Clinton or the same arguments going back to Obama and McCain or Obama and Romney. Same exact arguments. It's a relative conversation. This person is better than that person. So the pragmatic choice in this is Joe Biden. And I mean, I don't know anybody who can make an argument to the contrary. And I raise my hand. I can make an argument to the contrary. In fact, my argument, I think, is more right than yours. Agree, it does depend on what you're trying to accomplish and who you're trying to affect, meaning what policies and whatnot you're trying to affect. But I can certainly make an argument for Joe Biden. The woman here who makes this argument basically uses the idea of utilitarianism to justify, yes, I believe Joe Biden raped that woman. By the same token, I am going to vote for Joe Biden. This is a horrific, grim, however honest, I appreciate her honesty. However honest it is a grim, grim choice. And I would even argue it's a mistake. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you for allowing me to do it. Now, where I want to start with this is the article that I'm referencing, New York Times. And I'm not going to hate on this woman, Linda Hirschman. I believe Tara Reade. I'm voting for Joe Biden anyway. Now, she goes into this thing of basically, look, I'm a feminist, I believe him. She says, stop playing gotcha games with female supporters of Mr. Biden or the hashtag #MeToo movement. Make them lie on camera or perhaps to themselves and doubting her to justify their votes. Meaning, it's like, look, stop dicking around. Be honest. Like, don't be a hack. Be honest. Yes, I believe her. But yes, I'm also voting for Joe Biden. Because what she's realizing here is that a lot of people are coming out saying, I believe Ford, but I don't believe her. And she's like, look, stop doing that. Stop trying to make her as if she's the bad guy in this, or that this didn't happen, and trying to basically smear her in the way that Republicans often smear women who come forward against them. Except that Joe Biden did it. But also, vote for Joe Biden. Ugh! I love the honesty. I love the honesty. I love the honesty. It's wrong. I think this is profoundly wrong. But God damn it, I love that she's saying it. I'll take one for the team. I believe Mrs. Reade, and I'll vote for Joe Biden this fall. I won't say it will be easy. I've been writing and agitating for women's equality since the Feminist Mystique came out in 1963. I know how supposedly liberal men abuse the sexual revolution in every imaginable way. I am unimpressed by their lip service to feminism, their Harvard degrees, or their donations to feminist causes. In 1998, I was one of the few establishment feminists to argue on behalf of Monica Lewinsky when the unofficial representative of the movement, Gloria Steinem, threw her under the bus in the pages of the New York Times to protect Bill Clinton. I maintained my position until 2 decades and a Me Too movement later. Mrs. Steinem issued a non-apology for the essay, so I hate to say the following. Suck it up and make the utilitarian bargain. Oh, I love this! All major Democratic Party figures have indicated they're not budging on the presumptive nominee. All of the transaction costs of replacing him will be suicidal. Barring some miracle, it's not going to be Mr. Biden. So what is the greater good, or greatest good and the greatest harm? Mr. Biden and the Democrats may carry with him into government are likely to do more good for women and the nation than his competition, the worst president in history of the Republic. Compared with the good Mr. Biden can do, the cost of dismissing Tara Reade and worse, weakening the voices of future survivors, is it worth it? And don't call me amoral realist. Utilitarianism. It's not a moral abdication. It's a moral stance. Oh, I love that. Voting for a rapist is a moral stance. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love writing. I love writing. I love the way people say stuff. She says, oh God, I love that. Basically, look, this is not in a moral position. Basically, Joe Biden is better than Trump. And because Joe Biden is better than Trump, even though I accept Joe Biden might have raped a woman, and we're just being exposed to this, and Tom Perez is not going to do an investigation, I accept that he might have raped that woman. But it is the utilitarian choice, a moral choice, to choose this rapist over Trump and the president, because this rapist is better than that Trump in the long run. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that awesome? She keeps going. Utilitarian morality requires that I turn my face away from the people I propose to sell out. Monica Lewinsky, Tara Reade. This is agonizingly hard for me to do, pretending not to believe the complaints, which is what is taking place with Mrs. Reade, or that they're loose nobodies, which is what much more of the media did to Lewinsky, is just an escape from the hard work of moral analysis. Basically, don't make excuses. Accept that both things are true. That you're accepting a man that's a rapist, and you're also going to vote for that rapist because you believe that's the moral thing to do, to vote for that rapist. I love this woman's writing. And it adds to the harm. How is feminism advanced by casting a reasonable, credible complaint as a liar? Better to just own up to what you're doing, sacrificing Mrs. Reade for the good of many. You got to appreciate the honesty, right? How can you not appreciate the honesty? This is awesome. Now, what is wrong with this? What is wrong with this? Aside from the grim moralizing that she's trying to add, supporting the rapist as a moral stance, what's wrong with this statement? For one, Joe Biden hasn't won anything. Just as a very basic technical point, Joe Biden has not got the required number of votes. Second point, due diligence. Don't you want to have a certain integrity in the process? Do you really want to lose that any level of integrity, the shred of integrity that you may have left by having all of these women just come across as hypocrites? Like she said, she understands it. Why are you making these women liars? Because she knows that for those women to act that way for Kavanaugh and act this way separate and distinct, it makes them look hypocritical. It makes them look like they're lying, and the American public entirely understands it. That's why her point is, don't do that. Accept Reade, but also vote for Biden. Don't punk out and look away. Accept that you're sacrificing her for the greater good of the nation. It's like you're taking her up a mountain and you're just chucking her over the mountain because you need to stop the bad monster that's apparently eating babies and kicking puppies. That's an astonishing thing to say, and I appreciate her for saying it. But still, does integrity not matter anymore? Meaning, when Joe Biden said there needs to be an investigation, all right, Tom Perez, but Tom Perez doesn't want to do an investigation. Tom Perez is covering, basically, again, no integrity in this process. Obama did the vetting. I believe Obama, so I believe Joe Biden. And that's enough. And that's what all of them at this point are just going to say until they try to bury it and just keep moving on. Here's the thing. Are there any standards by which you're willing to go? Now, 20%, roughly 30% of the Democratic Party wants to replace Joe Biden. And this becomes somewhat of a drag on his polling numbers. To put it in contrast, 94% of Republicans are gun-ho for Trump. I told you, the issue here is suppressing of the vote by making it difficult to vote for a person who's being accused of rape and a party that hypocritically protected that person that's potentially accused of rape. Donald Trump only needs to suppress the vote, and if Joe Biden is in the midst of something that's suppressing it all on its own, that just makes it easier for Joe Biden to get elected and that much harder for Joe Biden to get elected. Last point, and I think this is probably the most important one. Where are your standards? Meaning, is there a line? Is there any point by which you say, okay, that's too much. I can't vote for that. Now, understand, before this allegation even came to fruition, Joe Biden was against all of your policies. Joe Biden wasn't even really running on policies. Joe Biden was running on, I'm more electable. Now, the person who was running against Joe Biden never really was running the race, so you can't even say a race was run. Any attack that Joe Biden get is going to be the first attack Joe Biden get because effectively Sanders never took his gun out of his holster. It wasn't even loaded. I don't even think he had a weapon. I guess I'm making the point that Joe Biden, in this very specific instance, was against everything that you were for. And I'm talking about lefties at this point. And in being against everything that you were for, Medicare for all, Social Security, expansion of things, it wasn't just Joe Biden as an individual. It was Joe Biden as a party. Every last Democrat that was on that stage lined up against you and your policy priorities. They smeared you on top of smearing Sanders. The mainstream media did that. The Democratic Party did that. And they did that relentlessly for months. And the Democrats, all of them, on stage, simultaneously continued to smear you even after getting out of the race. Look at what Warren did. She took super PAC money after grifting for money and votes from a group who she said she would never do that in order to split the vote, in order to stop Sanders. And now she's trying to be a VP pick, believing that she can somehow pull the left after stabbing all of these people in the back. What is your standards? This guy can barely get out text, meaning get out words. No idea how electricity works in regards to technology. If you put him there in order to speak for maybe 3 or 4 minutes, he will fuck it up if he can barely get out the words at all. But mostly incoherent. And more, and on top of that, from the standpoint of what you want in the political space, they were willing to lose to Trump if it meant beating you. Which means that you are not connected in the same party in a situation where elements of the party are willing to literally lose to the opposition in order to get you out of there. You need to understand where you are from the political standpoint and realize that you are not a Democrat. They don't treat you like a Democrat. They don't behave towards you like a Democrat. You have no policy interest in the party at all. They don't believe in your policy prescriptions. Yes, the majority of Democrats, meaning people, do. But from the established order of things, meaning third-way Democrats and the people who run that party, they do not. Meaning, how do you get your policy affected in a party that doesn't believe in your policies? The answer is you don't. It can't happen in the party. This is why I keep saying people need to push specifically for policy. Medicare for all. Basically what I call a tip of the spear campaign. Medicare for all at the top, rid of student debt, expansion of Social Security, and allow anybody, regardless of the party, regardless of the left, right, independent, any of them, to stand behind you on those very specific policies. What I will tell you, if you extricate yourself from the party to the tune of millions and stand behind policy proposals, you will have a better chance of getting those things accomplished than if you automatically give over all of your energy, all of your support to a party that offers you nothing in return for it. They've told you politics wrong. Over the last 40 years, that level of politics has only benefited the people who are at the top of the echelon of that party, meaning third-way Democrats who are not looking out for the public at all. Year after year after year, you've decided to look in this kind of narrow-focused pragmatism at each race, as each race was a separate thing. But the reality of it is, if you're doing that, you're going to miss the momentum of time in the way that politics changes over time. You get stuck sometimes when you're kind of just going through life and you miss the way politics shifts and changes, especially from election to election. But if you're looking at this over the context of time, you can see that when this guy, you agreed, okay, this guy's going to build one concentration camp less, so I'm going to vote for that guy. And then in 10 years, okay, that guy's going to build 2 concentration camps less, but now you have 20 more concentration camps because that guy's that onerous. And he was always just relative to the Democrat or the Republican, meaning that guy wasn't an objective thing unto himself. He was always least worse. So as bad as the Republican got, the Democrat got just as bad because, again, the argument is least worse. Where is your standard? At which point do you say, you know what? It's better for the party to lose than to break that particular standard. We believe that everybody should have health care. And so, yes, Medicare for all needs to be one of those things that is a litmus test that all of us, from flesh to bone, understand in the same way we understand Social Security. And it becomes clear you cannot get elected without X, or you cannot get elected without Y. For the longest time, you've been willing to vote for somebody entirely because of who they're not because of what they're doing, meaning there's no affirmative argument for putting the person in office. And then when you look at your political leaders, you're wondering why they're so ineffective. It's because any notion of accountability has been removed off the table in the way you do your politics, or the way we've done our politics for the last 40 years. Bill Clinton cuts welfare. Bill Clinton destroys the Telecommunications Act. Bill Clinton gets rid of, enhances or expands the criminal justice system. Bill Clinton gets rid of Glass-Steagall. Bill Clinton, Trans-Pacific Partnership. And what do lefties do? You have nowhere else to go. And they back him anyway. Because at a certain point, the moment that you consider yourself to be part of the party, it feels shameful for you not to give your support over. Missing the point that parties aren't necessarily real things, they're legal fictions, and you have a better view of politics standing outside the party, pushing for very specific policy, not the party's agenda. Those things are very different things. If you're standing here with me saying, I am pushing for Medicare for all, I am pushing for an expansion of Social Security, I am pushing for the elimination of college debt, and millions of you say, you know what, he's right, I'm going to stand there with him, you will get those items passed. It may not be in 4 years, but it may be this understanding that the moment that the party loses, because Joe Biden may lose anyway, by the way, the moment the party loses, you gain credibility in the political process as being able to enforce your will. That no, I can't necessarily win, but I do have the power to make you lose. And if you care about not giving concessions that much that you're willing to lose to Trump, then that's on you. But you knew where I stood. We weren't going anywhere. We were very clear. You get our support if you're willing to accept our agenda. Compare that level of politics, that transactional level of politics, which is really the way politics should be done, compared to just immediately folding into whatever random Democrat that they put up. You get worse and worse and worse year after year because you're looking at these events as if these events are narrow focus on each particular one instead of the context of time where you can see the politicians moving further to the right as they accept more and more cash, and you continue to break one standard after the next. You are supposed to be the conscience of this nation, and you end up in a situation with this transactional politics where you're willing to accept anything. That needs to change. Your politics, you hate your government because you've allowed these guys to go without accountability because you were so terrified of losing a race. There are times where it is better for them to lose a race than to break a standard. That's the point I'm trying to get at. I understand that you may be terrified of Trump. But by the same token, elections have consequences that go beyond just the individuals that you put in that office. It also goes to what are you willing to accept? And what is the next standard you're willing to break to accept whatever they're giving you in fear of the boogeyman from the other party? That needs to change if you ever want to get policy accomplished. Now, add on to that a rape charge. During Kavanaugh hearing, they treated the Kavanaugh hearing as if it was a flat fact, and they ran with it. Just an allegation. Al Franken, they kicked Al Franken out, again, on an allegation. Joe Biden, all of them, in lockstep, I believe Biden. Now, whatever you believe in this case, be honest with yourself. That's why I appreciate her article. I'm making the point, though, that accepting Biden in this case, in addition with all of the other flaws associated with him, what is your standard that you are willing to say, no dice? Lefties love unions, and yet lefties don't necessarily incorporate what unions do into the political sphere. The union is basically a company of workers who are individuals that lump together in order to put their collective energies and to vote in tandem because it allows strength in what they're doing as opposed to individuals. They then engage a company, the boss, the stronger, the owner class of that particular system, and they say, we need X and we need Y. At a certain point, where the conditions of the workers get so onerous, they walk. They walk because there's a limit. There's a line to what they're going to take, which is kind of why I'm asking, what is that limit? What is that line where you say, I'm done? And you realize this doesn't work anymore. This is so utterly detached from what we need as a society. Each and every policy proposal that Sanders put up had over 50, 60% support. And Joe Biden still says, yep, nope, none of it. They're utterly detached from what you want. And they're utterly detached because they realize that accountability in the system has been driven so low that they can give you anything and you would accept it. Hillary Clinton ran that race as if you owed her the nomination, as if she was saving you from, a burning building or something, and that you should be appreciative of the fact that she's not Donald Trump. That's not how politics works. If your opponent is willing to trash it all to Trump, which the Democratic Party absolutely was in this race, you need to be willing to also, if you're going to get anything accomplished. I don't want Trump to win. By the same token, I'm not thrilled by Joe Biden winning either. I guess I'm making the very basic point that if you, as a person, not as a Democrat, as a person, have policy ideas that you want to get accepted, they won't get done in a party that is against those things. And because you haven't had accountability in the political process and the party moved further to the right, at one point, it might have actually been for those things if you were accountable and stopped them from moving to the right at some point by making them lose. We never learn that particular lesson because the person who's running in the Republican Party is always used as a boogeyman to scare you into action of voting. This notion that you are saying, I believe a man committed rape, and yet I'm going to vote for him anyway, is breaking of a standard to such a degree that I cannot get that quite across. The fact that you know this, and you're still saying I'm willing to vote for him because I'm terrified of the other guy, that's not utilitarianism in the sense of a moral action. That's not a moral action at all. If anything, you are breaking such a standard that you are saying politically, I am willing to vote for a rapist if that means I can stop the other guy. Missing the point that your party, your Democratic Party, and the processes and the standards to which you're creating are also standards that you're creating for your party. I'm making the point, why are you so willing to utterly destroy any notion of integrity in your political process if it means stopping Trump? Missing the point that your party itself also should have standards just in going along of what it means to be a Democrat. And you should want some level of integrity in the process when people are looking at your party. You don't think that there's going to be a consequence just in the level of hypocrisy that was taking place with all of you people and then with Kavanaugh. Yes, the public realizes it and gets it. You would have been better off dealing with this process with a level of integrity as opposed to this, where you have people on the New York Times saying, I would vote for a rapist if it gets Trump out of office. I'll leave it here. I don't want to rant. Like, share, subscribe. Rosie Mike, you have been on fire. Thank you, Rosie Mike. I appreciate it. I've been aggravated. Like, share, and subscribe.